无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered even in billions of eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Venerable Masters, Dharma friends, good morning. Welcome to our Dharma talk this morning on the 3 refuges and the 5 precepts. Everybody, would you have cushions underneath the table? Chili wants to head in there. Good. All right, today is Saturday, June the 12th, here in the Gold Coast, Queensland. My name is Heng and we have a Q&A session, questions and answers from people about taking refuge with the 3 jewels and taking the 5 precepts. So that's what we're about. We'll be going for about 90 minutes. We'll be going till 10 o'clock. And hope you will all be able to ask some questions and hope our answers will satisfy you and go all the way to that source of those doubts, the source of those questions, fill in the information, bring you peace of mind, and ultimately, they say, fa xi, joy in the Dharma. All right. How are we going to proceed with the questions, Dharma Master? How do we want to? 这个问题呢，是谁在提问呢？这是不是问答？没有呢，那我们就已经结束了。好了，谢谢大家，阿弥陀佛。哎，阿弥陀佛，好。Okay, please translate the question. We need a translation both directions, okay? Thank you for the question.
My question is, I need to do past control. And how should I take the precept? Will that consider as key? How do I do to deal with past?
Okay. We have some more friends who've just arrived outside. So correct me if I get it wrong, but the question was, we have what is it like? 就说蚂蚁还有什么其他的东西？蟑螂，虫子哈。Okay, so I'm going to answer in English, and Cliff is going to translate. Right? Is that right? So 你们有耳机可以听到。So if the positions were reversed, if I was an ant and I lived with these very large creatures, I would not want to die just because they didn't like me, right? So every single creature with a life cherishes that life and doesn't want to die, right? That's a very basic reality. So at the same time, this is a complicated matter because suppose it's by mind, right? Suppose your house has termites. What do you do when your house has termites? And I speak as someone whose house I live surrounded by forest. My house here in the bush is surrounded by trees. Where there are trees, there are termites, aimagi, because they live on them and eat them. So, our teacher, Master Shen Gong Shangren, he faced the same problem, which is to say he was a property owner in the city of San Francisco. And in San Francisco, there are lots of termites. So what did he do? He said, city law requires homeowners, building owners, to deal with termites. Otherwise, the roof can fall down on people's heads, right? Termites are dangerous. So he said, we Buddhists do not break the law. We live according to the law. So what do we do? This is called a quandary. This is a conundrum. It's a maodun, right? It's a shama. So what do we do? It's a dilemma. The word in English is, this is a dilemma. A dilemma has two horns. You know, you do it this way, you get stuck with the other horn. If you take care of that horn, you get stuck with this one. That's what a dilemma means in Greek, is two horns. So what do? Master Hua's answer was, Buddha Dharma is living, it's dynamic, it is fluid, it's not fixed. But cause and effect is true. If we kill and harm living beings, we send out an energy that comes back to us and harms us. The reason being that at a very deep, fundamental level, we are all connected. Although my body, my skin stops here, there's a deeper level where earth, air, fire, and water connects all of us. Furthermore, inside us, invisibly, we have something called a Buddha nature. And that nature pervades all living things. So when I, with intent, volition, I choose to reach out and, poison an ant, or smash a cockroach, or put poison on termites, I'm hurting myself. And the result will be harm to myself and my family. But what do? This is why it's called a dilemma. This is a problem. We got a problem. Damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? So Master Hua said, Buddhism is not fixed. It's not stuck. We're not forced to do things. We have choices. So here is the choice. The choice is, and I did this, and we do it also. I'm going to digress. Whenever we cut down a tree, we do the same thing that I'm about to tell you. Trees are homes to all kinds of creatures, right? Visible and invisible. A single tree is an ecosystem. It just participates in everything from the weather to changing moisture to processing carbon dioxide and generating oxygen. Trees are living things. And in a tree, everything from possums to birds, to insects, to spirits, indeed. Master Hua said, if we have termites in our buildings, if we need to cut a tree, do this. And I'm going to suggest, this is my answer to you, what you can do. If you choose to, this is an idea. You can take a piece of paper and say, dear ants, dear termites, dear 老鼠, dear whoever it is, say it to your husband. 我的丈夫. We're going to remove you. No, I'm kidding about that. You say, we must live together. We do not want to hurt you, but we want you to move to the ants. Right? We want you to move because this is where humans live. So we hope you can find your home somewhere else on this day, whenever, we are going to call in the exterminators for the termites and ask you to leave, right? We are going to cut the tree down. So we paste that up. We write it out. You say signed. We say, you know, 法界佛教总会总纲是 so and so. You can say, you know, my name, live by living. Put the sign up, then recite the DRBA, recite the Great Compassion Mantra. Namo Buddhaya, right? And you can recite it 3 times, 7 times, 21 times, 108 times. Recite it as long as you like. And then you can say that you have done your part. Although you don't want to hurt them, say, we wish you no harm, but can I have a Kleenex? Excuse me, sorry. Sorry. Say, we mean you no harm, but we're going to take action on this day. Please move. So that way, you're acknowledging your intention to move these creatures. So that's what we do for termites. We did it here at 102. I put the signs up, recited, and then we called the termite control, Red Dog. And I learned a lot about termites. The man told me all kinds of things that I totally did not know about where termites, the termites that come in and eat the wood could live 100 yards away in a tree, and they travel underground, all kinds of things. So now, when it comes to ants, I have ants in my kitchen, and I recite for them, but what I notice about the ants is they come and go. They come and go according to the season. This year was so wet, I didn't have ants in my kitchen for the first time here, because it was raining so much. They seemed to be somewhere else. But I have had summers when the ants, every time I moved, I had to be careful so I wouldn't kill the ants. So I think it's probably a good idea not to poison the ants. If you can tolerate them and move any food that they eat, cockroaches come for food. If there's no food, the cockroaches, the danglang, I notice they don't come as much. So if you have huntsman spiders, you know, they love cockroaches. They eat cockroaches. So if you can learn to live with the 8-legged and the 6-legged and the many-legged, you notice you can learn so much. I watch the spiders, and I watch how the cockroaches, you know, they're living beings too. They're very successful living beings. They say cockroaches will outlive an atomic war, right? 原子弹落下来，其他的东西都死光了， cockroaches 存在。They're amazing. They're very hard to kill. So I find that if I look at them, and if your kids, you ask your kids to learn and, you know, learn about these creatures, because they cover the earth. There are more of them than there are humans by far. And there's a lot to learn about nature and the world. Of course, something in us doesn't like creepy things, you know. So things like termites, because they will eat your house, you have to take care of by money. But things like ants, it's good to learn to live with them. And if you really don't want them, then recite for them and say, we're going to shh, you know, at a certain time, and ask them to leave. But yes, to the quick answer, if you take the 5 precepts, you say, 今生受不杀生, to the end of my life, I will not kill, and then you go ahead and kill, the karma is still there. And if you've also broken the precepts. So the thing is, we have these big bodies. Our bodies are big and crude, and these little creatures that we have to live with. So most of all, you don't want to swat mosquitoes. Now that's tough because why? I've heard, anybody heard of chikungunya? That word, chikungunya? It's an African disease, and it's carried by mosquitoes. I heard that almost all the residents of DRBA in Kuala Lumpur have gotten chikungunya, and it's a serious disease. It's like dengue fever, only worse. Dengue fever, right? Dengue fever is borne by mosquitoes too. So for Buddhists, that's difficult because we don't, right? We don't do that. Because why? Watch the mosquito. The mosquito doesn't want to die. So you can say, oh man, so that means the Buddhists have to go have red welts on their skins, right? From being eaten by mosquitoes. Well, you get creative in learning ways to keep the mosquitoes away without killing them. As soon as you go to slap it, of course, it flies away. It loves its life. So we have these big bodies. You know what kills us with our big bodies? Viruses. COVID-19. We die with little tiny things. You know, the mosquitoes, compared to our bodies, are really small. So now I have a joke. I have one of my best Buddhist jokes. You ready for a good Buddhist? Buddhist jokes are hard to translate. Cliff, are you up to it? Okay, here comes the Buddhist joke. There were 3 housewives, and they were competing for compassion. It was a compassion fight, right? Compassion competition. Okay, so the 3 housewives, one of them says, oh yes, we have ants. We have ants. But when I sweep, I sweep around the ants. I give them their space and I sweep around the ants. And the other 2 go, oh, that's very compassionate, very compassionate. So the second housewife says, right? Okay, second housewife says, oh, yes, we have ants too. And I pick the ants up and put them to one side, and then I sweep. And the other goes, oh, that's really compassionate. So the third housewife says, yes, well, I pick the ants up, and I sweep, and then I put them back, she says. And they all go, oh. That's the joke. Did you all laugh? Nobody laughed. You didn't get it. So how ridiculous, right? Well, she picks the ants up and sweeps, then she puts them back. All to be number 1 in compassion, right? We shouldn't compete to be compassionate. Okay, so that's a long answer to the question, because why? It's a dilemma, 2 horns, right? 2个角, right? Difficult to solve. On one hand, we don't want to kill. And as a Buddhist, you say, Jin Xing Shou, Wu Sha Sheng, to the end of my life. After taking the precepts, I don't kill. So, problem comes when it's these little beings that we have to live with, especially here in Australia, where there's so much life, so alive. And some cultures just want to kill everything they see. They want to try to keep the world sanitary and clean from little things, you know. And the karma of killing, it pervades the world. So as Buddhists, we try to live in a compassion. All right? So try your best. Okay? How about?
阿弥陀佛，师父慈悲。
你就直接问嘛，不必什么花样。
我的问题呢，比较多，我想问一下，我想受五戒，但是呢，我的日常生活呢要买卖股票，也要做一些外汇的非吹的，就是短线的一些交易。我问呢，我们要是受了五戒以后，还可以买股票吗？还可以做这种金融买卖吗？还有呢，如果我要去找另外一个工作，朋友呢介绍一个这个开厂的 deliver 的司机的工作，这样的工作是不是也在外 帮助人在杀生呢，这种工作可以去接受去做吗？就是我是想问这个问题。
好，
谢谢。
好，OK， Thank you。听不见。So I didn't get it. So doing stock market and lots of financial things. What's the question? Stock day trading? Stock market? That's it. There wasn't anything else. That's the question, right? Okay, I got it.
Second question, my friend introduced my new job as to be a delivery man to a butcher shop. Is that okay?
Delivery man to a butcher shop. For the friend or for for yourself?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. So 你帮大家翻译什么？大家都有耳机可以听到吗 ？OK， 这样子我就可以讲一个语言上的事情。Okay, so as far as I know, stock trading is stock trading. It's just trading. So if you're gambling inside of the stock market, then there's no precept that says don't gamble for the 5 precepts, but I think the place to look to answer the question, is this a broken precept or are my precepts pure? The place to look is in your mind. If action or behavior increases greed, and greed unsatisfied leads to anger, and then anger leads to affliction, trouble, then you've answered your question. We cultivate the way, we practice the Dharma to transform affliction so we're not upset, so we're not anxious, so we're not worried, so we're not afraid, so we're not upset all the time. That's the purpose of cultivation. The prince, look at the prince, Prince Siddhartha, the founder of Buddhism, right? He had no affliction. He was happy. They call it Fat City. He was all set. He was prince. He had all the armies, all the elephants, all the weapons, all the entertainments. He had a beautiful wife who was a princess, and he had a son on the way. He was going to be king. But he got afflicted because he saw that old age, sickness, and death was coming for him. And he did not know. Right? He didn't know. He had been raised in a bubble. And as soon as he realized that his life was going to get old, he was going to get sick, he was going to die, suddenly, oh my goodness, he was very unhappy. And he sought high and low for a way to escape mortality. He wanted to end Shangsa, birth and death, which is called samsara. He saw that clearly. He was going to lose his body and get another one. Going to die and be reborn. No fun, right? A lot of suffering. So he looked for a way to end. He discovered how to do it. And he had a choice, which was to keep the answer to himself or to tell people about it. Well, the Devas came and said, people are suffering, please teach. So what did he teach? He said, oh, do you all want to do what I did? Do you all want to put an end to birth and death? He said, here's how. But, he said, you need guidelines. You need method, a technique. And if you follow my technique, you can do what I did. What did he say? He said, avoid killing, avoid stealing, avoid sexual misconduct, avoid dishonesty, and don't introduce intoxicants into your bloodstream. Right? Don't use intoxicants. And if you avoid those 5 mistakes, you can do what I did. You can follow me, he said. All right? That's the basis of the precepts. And why do I explain it that way? Why do I say it that way? It's because I think, so our question is about stocks and about, driving for a butcher. Many people, myself included, point the finger right at me, misunderstood the purpose of the precepts. I was raised in America where freedom is a big issue. Freedom is a real concept that motivated me as a young American. I didn't like rules. I wanted to be free. Hit the road. I thought at the start that the Buddha's precepts were rules that I had to follow. Or maybe the Buddha would be unhappy with me. Or maybe Shifu would be unhappy with me. And it took me 10 long years and a teacher to change my opinion, to change my outlook. So this is a long answer to the question, but I think it's important that I want people to get this point. Because if you get this point, it changes an attitude towards the precepts. And one day, I was in Calgary, Alberta, Hwaiyatsu. It's the old Hwaiyatsu. And Shifu was visiting. He had flown from San Francisco all the way to Calgary. And he was about to leave. He's going to get on the airplane and go back. And of course, time with our teacher was precious. So, Shifu, I was a monk already. I'd been a monk for 10 years. Sandui Pai was in my rearview mirror. This is already, and I was talking now. I'd already been silent for 6 years, and I started moving. So, I remember Shifu was disciplining me for something. And he taught monks like that, and nuns too. You got scolded a lot, sometimes for things you didn't do, because he would test you to see how you react to being scolded. So somebody had misplaced the mail that day. The letters had come and they got stuck in a closet. I was getting scolded. What did you do with my letters? Who told you to lose my mail? And so I had my head in the ground. I'm sorry, Shifu. I'll see if I can find the letters. And then there was no noise. And I looked up, and Shifu was looking down at me with a smile on his face. How long have you been a monk? He said. I said, 10 years, Shifu. He said, 10 years. He said, I don't think you have taken the first step inside the Buddha's door. He said, I think that you think the Buddha is a cop, a policeman, who's waiting to catch you if he can catch you breaking the precepts. Right? And just when he said that, I had a picture in my mind. I'll never forget it because it was so clear. It was an Old Testament God with a hand raised up, lightning coming out of his hand, and an angry face. But it was the Buddha's face, an angry Old Testament Buddha, like this, you know, like from a painting by Raphael or Caravaggio of, you know, an angry, jealous God. Shifu said, you still don't understand how compassionate the Buddha really is. He's on your side. He's just waiting for you to wake up, he said, with a smile. And I felt my heart just crack open because, too true, I had made the Buddha out to be a policeman, to be an angry God who, if I told a lie and he didn't know, I got away with it, right? I beat the Buddha. And I had taken the precepts and I put them outside. So is it okay to do this? 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 Once you take the precepts and put them in your heart, you answer all those questions for yourself. Why? When let's say we're driving a truck with dead animal bodies in it. Is it breaking the precepts or can I still hold my precepts? Well, you didn't kill the animal. You didn't cause the animal to suffer, but to break the precepts, if you explain them, there are people who professionally, they focus on all the details of the precepts, right? The Vinaya school. And they say, to break a precept, you have to have sha, yin, sha, yuan, sha, ba, sha, yin. You have to have all four, you have to have the cause of killing, the conditions of killing, you have to have a method to kill, and you have to go and kill. Then you've broken the precept. Okay, I get a headache when I hear all that. You know, it's like, okay, that's a good theory. The question is, can I drive a butcher's truck? Of course you can drive a butcher's truck. The Buddha is not a cop. You know, that's a job. If you have a job, you have a salary, that's a good thing. However, that is there a cause of killing in the butcher's truck? No. Is there a condition? Sort of killing. That's the yuan, sha yuan, a little bit. You're putting the meat in other people's hands. You didn't kill, so it's not black and white. Is there a method of killing? No. Is there a killing action? No, it's not. My grandfather was a butcher. My father's father was a butcher in Sherbrooke, Quebec. He made his living by killing animals, right? That's direct, that's sha, fa, yin, yan, fa, yin, all four conditions are there. So, when I heard your question, I thought about a bartender, right? Bartenders. What are bartenders? What was their job? They are putting alcohol in the hands of people who then drink it and then ruin their blood cells. I read a study the other day in the news that said every time we drink, we're killing brain cells. It was a difficult study, especially for Scotsmen, that even a glass of wine, they say, is killing, you know, and there's studies of everything. Same with food, you can go crazy following the studies. But putting alcohol in the hands of people who then drink it is aiding the process of intoxication. And of course, people around the world, we love to drink. We need intoxicants to get through our day sometimes. So get through the night. So we are talking about what? We are talking about people who want to follow the Buddha. Why are you taking the precepts? I didn't know. For 10 years, I thought I had to. I thought I was forced to take, like Shifu said, you think the Buddha's there to bust you, right? I didn't. I was a monk for 10 years, and I still had the precepts outside. But because Shifu is such a good teacher, he knew when and how to give me that little push, so that what? He said, you still don't understand that the Buddha is compassionate. He's on your side. He's waiting for you to wake up, right? 师父领进门，修行在个人, right? The teacher brings you to the gate. Whether or not you cultivate is up to you, right? So I would ask, why do we take the precepts? Why do you want to take the precepts? The answer that I think is a good answer, the one that works, is because we want to follow the Buddha. So the Buddha said, if you want to do what I did, and let's say, 勤修戒定慧，洗灭贪嗔痴, diligently cultivate precepts, samadhi, and wisdom, put an end to greed, anger, and stupidity, then 可以, we're free to do it. The Buddha does not own the precepts. He doesn't own the samadhi. He doesn't own wisdom. He says, take them, they're yours. Pick them up. If you want to, they're yours, right? However, on the road, on the path to following me, if we kill, steal, lust, lie, and drug, we meet obstacles. It's not smooth. There's trouble along the road, right? It's like tying your shoelaces together and walking, right? If you tie your shoelaces one to left to right and then walk, boom, down you go, right? So, first question is, do we want to follow the Buddha and really understand our lives, really understand the world around us? Do we want wisdom? Do we want compassion? Then we look at things with new eyes after taking the precepts. Certainly, so when I understand the conditions of a butcher's truck. I lived for 2 years at Jinfo in Vancouver. Jinfo. That's Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. I've lived in Canada a lot. And this was the old Jinfo. It was a former Salvation Army building right in the heart of Vancouver. Ooh, tough neighborhood. Needle Park is directly behind it, where everybody shoots up and dies. They had more OD deaths, overdose deaths, next door to us than anywhere else in the city. Directly next to us was a fish market. And right across the alley, I mean, we could touch our building and then take 2 steps and touch the really close. And don't you know, in the summer, when the weather was hot, we would be bowing to the Buddha, and the fish market smells would fill Salvation Army, filled with really fragrant, really fragrant. You could smell, because they would take the, killing fish. They would just take it, dump it in the garbage can, right by our back door. And we got to know the folk. They were Chinese fish merchants too. We got to know them and would talk to them. And the owner of the fish market lost his son in an auto accident. He was short a couple fingers, chopped his fingers off, and he was always sick. And he was a very philosophical guy, and he would say, "Yeah, I know." He said, "This is not a good business," but he said, "What are you going to do?" He said, "I got to get my kids through school." So he was not going to quit. And because Vancouver is right on the ocean, you know, Henderson Bay and Burrard Inlet, and the fishing boats would come right to the dock, and the fish market trucks would drive right to the docks and get the fish fresh. We would go there, buy the fish and fangsheng. We would get in between and, you know, buy the fish immediately and liberate them before they even got into the truck. But the truck drivers, it's funny, the drivers turned over a lot. That was a hard job to keep. People didn't keep the fish market truck driver job very long. So lots of people came in. But we would watch the fish come out of the ocean, into the truck, into the shop, into the kitchen. And it kept us very sincere. We recited a lot for the fish going to people's kitchens. And it really helped to put chunks of it right in front of our eyes. We could see the reality of birth and death happening. So, yeah, that's, it's to say you could, so first question, stock market, is the stock market breaking precepts? Is there killing involved? No. Is there stealing involved? Well, not directly. Is there sexual desire involved in the stock market? No. Is there dishonesty? Depends on the individual broker and what he promises you, I guess. Is there intoxication? Some people get drunk with day trading, you know, they can't stop. But it's not an intoxicant. So the first question, trading on the stock market should be okay, not breaking the precepts. If in the process of buying and selling stock, greed arises in our mind, then there will be affliction, because greed is a poison, you know. We are 洗灭贪嗔痴. The idea is we want to wipe out that greed. So watch your mind, be careful, and don't go overboard. As for driving a butcher's truck, it's not 100% clear that it's not a, what would you say, a compassionate job. If it's a way to earn money to feed the family, probably okay. But I would encourage, just in my own experience, I would encourage folks to find a job that is compassionate, one that even doesn't have the yuan of sha. Right? I've got one more story for you. This also came from Vancouver, Jinpo Si. And we had there was a layman, a Jushi, his name was Xu Li De, David Z, his name. And David Z was a realtor. He sold real estate, right? On beach high, right? And he was a wheeler dealer. David wanted to be the biggest realtor in Vancouver. He was climbing the ladder, so he had to make the right friends and do the right deals and meet the right politicians. You know, he was really upwardly mobile. He wanted to become successful. So one of the social groups that he joined was a gourmet club in Vancouver, 美食家, 美食俱乐部, something like that. A gourmet club. They would take turns. There were maybe, 40 people in the club, and of course they were the same kind of people you would meet at the country club, play golf with, and play tennis with. They were rich, up-and-coming people in Vancouver. They would take turns and go to each other's house, and the host that week would serve a gourmet meal, right? And of course, oh my gosh, they studied the famous chefs and all the stuff. And in the process, 杀了很多生啊，哎呀, especially because Vancouver is right on the ocean, so they have the freshest seafood. And so Shulida was a very interesting guy because he was very honest with his own. He would tell you what was happening in his mind, talk about his feelings, tell you about his experiences right away. And it is my, oh my goodness, I didn't realize that I'm entertaining you with my slideshow. Okay, why not? All right, there we go, good, yeah, 杀生, 互生, 不杀生. So, David was very honest about his feelings. And one day, he came in to old Buddha, and he said, I want to take the precepts. And he said, why so dramatic? He said, oh, I got to stop killing. Wow, why, David, what's going on? He said, oh, I have a story to tell. And so Shifu was there that weekend. So Shulida told the story. He said, it was my turn for the gourmet club. I was the host and invite everybody into my home. And of course, he said, I wanted the freshest seafood. And so he said, I decided that we were going to serve eels. Eels, 什么鱼? 鳗鱼. He said, so, oh man, he said, I drove a station wagon. He says, I got a big garbage can and I filled it up with seawater, salt water, drove down to the docks, met the boat on the dock, shook hands with the skipper of the boat, paid him. He put 5 fresh Pacific Coast eels into my garbage can with the salt water in it, and I covered it up and I put up the tailgate and I drove home. He said, I carried the garbage can into the kitchen with all the water. He said, I got out my butcher knife, sharpened my butcher knife, right? And he said, and I reached in to the garbage can, lifted the lid, reached in, pulled out the first eel, and it was way stronger than I thought. And he said, and it was terrified, and it slipped out of my hands, and it landed on the floor of my kitchen. And he said, and of course, it's really wet, and it slipped under the kitchen table. So he said, I was there, I got down on my hands and knees, and I had my butcher knife, my he said, and I was chop, oh, and it chop. And he said the eel was terrified, it went under the stove. So he said, I was reaching out of the stove, and pull it out, and my legs kicked over the garbage can. So all 5 eels are in the kitchen floor, and I'm chasing around, I'm putting dents in the linoleum with my knife, trying to kill them. And I got all wet, and I slipped, and I covered with salt water, and I couldn't catch a single eel, and they were terrified of me. And suddenly, he said, maybe Guanyin Bodhisattva gave me a picture of myself. My hair was a mess, I was covered in water and slime, and I had this knife, and I was, come back here! He said, I realized that I had turned into a demon. In the eyes of the eel, I was an ogre, a about to end their lives, he said, I lost all my taste for seafood on the spot. He said, I put my knife down, I calmed the eels, put them back in the can, put them back in the ocean. I want to take the precepts and stop killing. Will you please give me the precepts? So, 师父 nodded. 好的，取了一个法心受戒，难得。So I saw that happen in front of my eyes. You know, so you just flip it over, and from the point of view of the eels, Shu Li was this monster about to eat their bodies. Of course they were terrified. Yeah, so my goodness. Shu Li has another story. We'll save it for next time. Yes, hi, over.
是吧？我这样我也有点问题。我们如果受戒的话，可以偶尔因为社交方面的原因来，比如说一杯啤酒，第一个问题啊。第二个问题是，如果请客人到我家喝酒，可以招待客人喝酒，这两个。
Did everybody hear? 你们都听到了吗? I didn't bring my hearing aid today. So
his first question is that because with my social life, okay, drink alcohol, good for yourself, and then the second question is, then if I myself not doing it, but if I invite people to come to my house and I serve alcohol to the guests to visit my house.
I'm sorry to say I didn't understand, Sam. Could you, let's see, maybe it's the microphone that just distorting it.
So in the social life, not the social care, the social
Okay, that's number one. Was there two? Oh, did I miss the first one? Okay. Okay. Okay, got it. Okay, right. My ears have declined clearly, and I'm. So it's not your problem. It's my ears. Okay. So. The answer is, of course, you can drink. Of course, you can put, we put anything into our bodies. There's no law against consuming alcohol. The question is, if we decide that we're going to follow the Buddha, why? Because we admire the Buddha's wisdom and compassion. And we want to do what the Buddha did. We want to really, really clearly understand our minds, ourselves, our world. We want to see the thoughts rising in the mind so we can prevent them from turning into actions that we'll regret later. Then we can. It's free, we don't owe the Buddha a patent infringement, there's no copyright on it. It's totally public domain and free. So we should, before we decide we're going to take the precepts, we want to be ready to do that. And personally, true confessions, I showed up at Gold Mountain Monastery having drunk 3 beers on several occasions. And I didn't drink a lot, but I did like beer, and I like, Guinness stout. Guinness is good for you. We know. And other substances. And I was translating for Master Hua, sitting here while Shifu was in his Fa Zuo, sitting beside me. And I knew that I smell like alcohol. Shifu would look down at me like this. 怎么样呢？还好。And so I understand the transition. And even as a monk, it took me a long time to appreciate what the precepts were really about, what they were for. So what I would suggest is, if alcohol is important in a social context, it is. If I still want alcohol to relax, then what I would suggest is take 4 precepts. Don't take the intoxicant precept if you want the other 4. There will come a time, and do it with a happy heart. Don't do it feeling like, oh, I'm really not very good Buddhist. Don't do that. Say, no, alcohol is part of my life. It's important for me. So I'm not going to take a precept that says, 尽心受不饮酒. To the end of my life, I'm never going to drink. Don't say those words and then drink. Why? Right? Why? The point of no alcohol is not because the Buddha says, I don't want my disciples to have fun. I want my disciples to be unhappy all the time. It's not the way the precepts work. The Buddha gave the precept against intoxicants so that when we follow him and look into our mind, let's say we're sitting still, right? When you meditate, you're like this, You're sitting still. You're trying to be really still. So that as the thoughts rise, I see them, I catch them, I notice quietly, bit by bit, we enter a state called samadhi, samme, zhengding, And samadhi, zhengding, is a total transformation of our consciousness, of our 6 senses, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, mind. Thoughts don't rise. And we transform. And there's another level of function right inside our body and mind called samadhi. That is, we talk about superheroes, you think of Iron Man, you think of Spider-Man, you think of, Batman. And we celebrate the superheroes, but every one of us has in us superhero qualities way beyond Marvel Comics, way beyond the Marvel universe. And it has to do with going from ordinary consciousness to samadhi consciousness, and then to wisdom. So to get to that place, alcohol makes us move. Marijuana, cocaine makes us move. Methamphetamine destroys synapses, right? And fentanyl even worse. So to remove those intoxicants allows us to be really still. I will guarantee that after a couple of beers, meditation doesn't look very attractive. What's fun about drinking is it relaxes inhibitions and gives us a little buzz. Well, the buzz is those brain cells, going away. So I would suggest that if the precepts look good, take 4. And then later, when you say, no, I've experimented enough, I don't need to drink anymore, then take that 5th one. And that's good. Do it with a full heart. So, is that okay? That's an okay answer? Personally and socially. The social question. There are levels of precepts. What we're talking about here is called the 5 precepts, which are appropriate for lay people. But there's another layer of precepts called Bodhisattva precepts, Pusajie. And the Bodhisattva precepts include one. People, sometimes when people explain these precepts, they really lean on this one because it sounds really scary. The violent precept, which is, say, if you pass a glass of wine or Guinness Stout or Jack Daniel's whiskey or, age 35-year-old Scottish, Drambuie, whatever, liqueur. If you do hand that over for 500 lives, you lose your hands, right? Ah, yeah, that's exciting. Ah, cool. Violence in the priest. So it's like, what? 500 lives, no hands, Buddha, oh my God. Wow. So, what's the point? Really? Not 499 lives? Not 501 lives? So, what is that precept about? It's, again, the Buddha saying, why would you voluntarily take this restraint on normal behavior? Every culture in the world drinks, right? And why would you let alcohol go? Well, one answer would be because you want to transform consciousness to wisdom. And alcohol is an obstruction. It's a block. You have to wait for the stuff to get out of your bloodstream before you're back to stillness. And so the Buddha, in telling us not to become bartenders, not to put alcohol in people's hands, is telling us to really recognize the value of samadhi and the obstacle of intoxication. So, okay, I've told this story before in this room, but it's worth telling. So I was about to become a monk. I was still a graduate student at UC Berkeley. I was not yet become a monk. And the Master Hua offered the 出家菩萨戒, not the Saja, the 出家菩萨10种48经, the 10 major 48 minor precepts to lay people. And I was like, oh, okay. So I took them, and it happened to be Thanksgiving Day, November 20th, Thursday in November, 4th Thursday, November 26th. Well, I was going to shave my head within like 3 weeks. So I thought, okay, I'll take the Bodhisattva precepts and I'll become. And because I knew that pretty soon I would be a monk, I thought, my last chance for Thanksgiving dinner with my relatives. This is my mother's older sister, Aunt Lucy Ann, who lived out through the tunnel in Contra Costa County, not far from Oakland. So I took the 10种48经菩萨戒 in the morning, and I got in my old Volvo car, and I drove through the tunnel, headed out to Aunt Lucy Ann's house for Thanksgiving dinner, the last Thanksgiving dinner, okay? And I had the words of those precepts echoing in my ear. I could hear the details of the precepts. So I'm sitting there, and I'm smiling at her, I'm saying, no turkey for me, thank you. I'm a vegetarian, And she's like, you're a what? No turkey, I'm a Buddhist. So she said, oh, well, what can you eat? Eat the dressing, eat the cranberry sauce, eat the potatoes and gravy. Oh, there's meat in the gravy, okay. Butter, put the butter on the potatoes. And then she said, oh, and Christopher, here, would you mind passing this down to Uncle John? And she put a glass full of wine in my hand. And I'm, with the moisture dripping down, and it's a nice white Chablis, and I go, oh, here, Uncle John, Uncle John, thank you, son, And I thought, precepts for 3 hours and I broke them already. Just like that. And I'm like, oh no, why did I come to this Thanksgiving dinner when I felt so bad. You know, I held the precept 3 hours. I took them in the morning, mid-afternoon, I'd already broken the precept against passing a glass of wine, exactly like your question, right? Passing a glass of wine to my own. I felt so rotten. So I parked my Volvo outside Gold Mountain Monastery and came in the door. There is Sherfu standing in the hallway. Tell me on, how did it go? What? I broke the precepts. I can't leave home. You know, I was pretty much in tears, you know. I felt like a failure. So Sherpa said, he was full of chi. Sherpa said, 你有杀生没有啊? Did you kill anyone? No. 偷盗了没有啊? Did you steal anything? He said, did you tell lies? 算了. He said, walked away. And I felt all of that was gone. It was like, that was it. Did you kill anyone? Did you steal anything? Did you lie? Forget it. He said, forget it. 算了. You know, walked away. Meaning, remember what we're about. Why do we want to take the precepts in the first place? Because we want to do what we want to do. Don't worry about losing your hands for 500 lives because your auntie put a glass of wine in your hands. You know, it's like the Buddha is not trying to bust us because he thinks, you know, he caught us breaking. That's not the attitude to the precept. So I think if we can get that correct perspective, then a lot of these questions resolve themselves. So if we still want to drink or invite friends for social drinking, that's normal. Nothing wrong with that. But if we say, I want to take the Buddhist precepts because I want wisdom and compassion, then maybe I'll have some grape juice. You know, we're serving something different. Kombucha. Have some kombucha. Okay. 还有吗? Hey, 阿弥陀佛。
我想问一个，现在在打疫苗，这个也是中毒。我们平时生病的时候，也是就是说，只要是气定心，我们就可以去掉一切的病毒。可以用慈悲心来治疗我的任何的疾病。那面对这个疫情，面对这个疫苗，我们应该是作为佛的弟子，我们应该如何来对待，如何来正确的对待？向师父慈悲开示。阿弥陀佛。
What is the Buddhist attitude towards the vaccination and disease?
Towards the vaccination and disease.
And disease.
Yeah.
Since we say having a great compassion and human, so we still what is the attitude towards that?
Okay. So, believe it or not, the time has really zoomed by. So, I appreciate everybody, especially the elders sitting here in the cold Buddha wall, right? Did you all dress warmly today? As they say in Australia, did you rub up, right? Everybody's doing okay here. So, I need to, I'll tell you what's going on. 12:30 noon here. I'm going to be giving the 7:30 Sunday lecture at City of 10,000 Buddhas on Master Hsuanhua's 26th observance of his Nirvana. 26 years ago, Shifu was Nirvana. And they've asked me to give the lecture at CTV. So I'm going to share it with Heng Yin Shi, Heng Yin Bichuni, Jin Chuan Shi, and Alex, who left. 4 of us are going to be giving that lecture. So we have to set it up, and the meeting to do that is after 10 this morning. So I have to get back as well. We've been in 15 minutes, and then I need to go and do my meeting to plan our lecture. So people are welcome to tune in if you're at home Monday, 12:30 noon, if you're not at work or school. Or I guess you could also come to attend. I'll be sitting here. So. But you can go to CTTV Live on YouTube. It's our YouTube stream, and you'll hear it. We're going to talk about Master Hua's biography. We're making Shifu's Western biography from 1961, when he came from Australia to Hong Kong to America, to 1995, that period of his life. And then on from 95 to now, we're going to write that. So that's what I'm going to be doing in just a moment. Sam and I are going to jump in the golf cart and go do my thing. So a quick question about vaccination. When I bet pretty much, does every one of you have a little scar on your arm? A round scar, where we got vaccinated from smallpox, right? Me too. I grew up in a time of polio. Remember polio? Polio is 什么麻痹大小儿麻痹症. So polio was awful when I was a child. It killed people, it crippled people, it put them into iron lungs. Remember that intervention? And it was so cruel because it would pick out one child in a family, but not the siblings and things like that. Awful, awful. And then Dr. Jonas Salk, remember Salk vaccine, S-A-L-K, was the name of the doctor who invented polio vaccine, Salk vaccine. And it prevented polio. And when I took it, it was a sugar cube. I remember in school, we all lined up and they put a drop of the vaccine on a sugar cube, and we, of course, happy to eat a sugar cube and took the vaccine. Otherwise, it was a shot. So, having a human body, we participate in the environment in so many ways. We put crops grown in the garden into our mouths and chew them up. And then out the other end comes fertilizer, you know. We breathe in the air, and every breath is thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of microscopic beings, including currently coronavirus, viral, tiny beings that get into our lungs and make us impossible to breathe, and we die. COVID-19 deaths are like drowning because your lung cells fill up with liquid and you can't get a breath. That's why we need ventilators. So our bodies participate in the environment in multiple ways. Sometimes we get sick, and the sickness is the earth, air, fire, and water in our bodies not in harmony. That's why Zhongyi, Chinese medicine, is so good, because it puts our bodies back in harmony. Too much fire, reduce the fire. Too much water, reduce the water. You need more digestive fire, increase it here. More jiang, eat more ginger, right? And puts us in harmony. sickness is out of balance. The four elements are not in harmony with our bodies. So when you get a serious virus in the world, like coronavirus, for example, medicine, science and medicine looks for a way to counteract the body's reaction to the virus. So when they discover it and we put it into our bodies, the idea is still the same. We're rebalancing. We're giving the body signals not to overreact. I guess coronavirus, what happens is your body's immune system goes crazy trying to get rid of the virus. So the vaccine is a way to give the body signals how to react to make our immune system strong and in harmony, right? Again, so it's just that principle. And so Master Hua, in what was it? When I was giving my lecture here, and I told that story about Shifu was 1980s, the swine flu, right? Right? What was it called? Swine flu. And people had to be vaccinated. Shifu said, everybody should go get vaccinated. It's time to protect ourselves against sickness. So when you're healthy, we can do good, we can serve the world, we can benefit people, we can li gong, li de, li yan, you know, we can do what we're supposed to do. When we're sick, I was sick for a week with a rhinovirus 3 weeks ago, and I couldn't do a thing for myself. It's just, I went through an entire box of Kleenexes, emptied garbage twice with Kleenexes, you know, just sneezing. I was a mess, right? I was out of harmony. So when I see a vaccine coming, I have been vaccinated myself against, here you go, translator, measles, mumps, chickenpox, whooping cough, diphtheria, typhoid, typhus, rubella, scarlet fever, and coronavirus. I got one shot so far. So for me, yes, I want the vaccine. I don't have any thoughts of not taking the vaccine. And I think the anti-vaccination people or vaccine hesitancy, you know, they say yan er dao ling. That's the Chinese proverb. You cover up your ears. Somebody's ringing a bell. Ding, 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 ding. And you say, what bell? I don't hear a bell. Any bell? No, nobody's ringing a bell. Right? Yan er dao ling. You have to be blind to the reality of coronavirus. In the US, 600,000 people. And so a vaccine is good. That's my personal opinion. Okay. So chance for one more, then I have to run. Nope. Okay. Yes, sir. All right.
Thank you. The precepts and the precepts and refuge. What I seem to struggle most with is the concept of non-self and reduction in the ego and self. Will entering into refuge and the precepts help me in this area? Specific areas I should focus on.
It's the specific area of
non-self.
Okay. Can you translate to the Chinese? Did you get it? Okay. Good. So Rory it has a philosophical turn of mind and is looking at the one of the deepest questions that humans can ask, which is, who am I? What is this thing called me and mine? And the quick answer to your question, will taking refuge and taking the precepts aid in that quest? The answer is yes, it will. Yes, it will. There are many people try to look at the entire body of Buddhist teaching and put it into a nutshell, to really say it in a few words. And one of the more successful descriptions of what Buddhism is about is that the Buddha saw through the constructed self. He really did. There's all kinds of teachings about this. It's not that the self is unreal, it's a constructed self. It's a fluid, useful story that we tell ourselves, but is changing all the time, right? The me that was you when you were 4 is not the me who is you now. And the me who will take his last breath on a deathbed sometime 400 years in the future, So the self, they say, what is wisdom? They in Chinese, they call it Di Yi Di, truth in the primary sense. Truth in the primary sense is the truth of no self. And it was the fruition of the Buddha's 6 years of cultivation in the Himalayas, living in the bush. Right? He saw through the constructed self, the illusion of the self. And that truth in the primary sense is a double truth, which is what? You have to maintain the illusion so that, when the police pull you over and you hand them your driver's license, they say, your tail light's out. Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you, officer. They know who you are. There you are. There's your face on the driver's license. At the same time, you don't take it seriously. You understand that although that illusory thing is still there and it still creates karma, you still have to live kindly, wisely, gently. At the same time, ultimately, there's nobody more. The difference is you don't take it from me. Once you take the refuge and the precepts, you can experience it yourself. That's the difference. Okay? Thank you all. We can do this again. And the time went fast, didn't it? Lots of great stories. If anybody, we could probably do this again, people, if you get a whole bunch more questions, Oh, question about, somebody asked, if they have a baby in the oven, should the baby, and it's not yet been born, can they take refuge with the child too? Not yet. You take refuge, be a really good mom, and day 2, you can bring in a 2-day-old infant and we'll give the baby the Dharma name. But until the child has arrived, you be good mom. Now, at the same time, you can do Tai Jiao. You can really good thing to do is to, hey, there's a kookaburra right there. A really good thing to do is to recite before the baby comes out, recite the Pumenpin, the Universal Doorway chapter, recite the Di Zhangjing, the Earth Door Sutra, introduce them to the Buddha before they come. Today, what did we have today? We had, look here. This is my lecture. I lectured that this morning already at 5:30. Cold over there. Ready? Take a look here. Right there. 若有女人设欲求男礼拜供养观世音菩萨，便胜福德智慧之男；设欲求女，便胜断正有相之女。素知德本，众人爱敬。 If women seeking sons bow to and make offerings to the Bodhisattva Guanxuyin, they will give birth to sons happy, virtuous, and wise. If instead they wish for daughters, they will bear gifted daughters with deep-rooted, wholesome character, beloved and respected by all. Wu Jin Yi Guanxuyin Pusa You Shi. Infinite resolve, such is the power of the Bodhisattva who listens to the sounds of all the world. Right? So here it is. This came up today in the sutra. If you want, your child has not arrived yet, but you want the kid to be a good kid, right? Virtuous, happy, easily raised, deep-rooted goodness, gifted with great character. Recite Namo Guanxuyin Pusa, or the Pumanti, the Universal Door chapter. And your child will turn out just great. All right? Okay, let's do the transference of merit right now. Here we go. And then I will disappear. I'll be back here tomorrow at 12:30 explaining the Avatamsaka Sutra, if anybody wants to listen in. All right. Here we go. Look forward to seeing those of you who are going to take refuge in precepts. Any more questions that come up, you can ask me. Just send me an email. Right? Ready? Here we go. Hey, every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see, our hands and hearts can find in giving unity. May our minds away to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of our endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. Okay, you can out to the Buddhists. Okay, see what you want me to for everybody.